All right. So, hello, my name is Victoria. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of the estate planning attorneys with the Copenbarger law firm, and I am an absolute pet lover. And so, when I got into estate planning, one of the first questions I had is, what can we do to protect pets? Because for a lot of us who are pet lovers, our pets are an absolute part of our family. But there's more than just the pet side of things. There is also the what if you have livestock or you have more of a working animal consideration. That can get even more complex at that point. And so there is planning that needs to be considered, whether you have a very simple consideration to be looking at or it needs to be more complex. Ways that you can protect your pets. If you already have a revocable trust, that is one of the ways of just making a specific provision in there. Or if you are looking to have more flexibility, a little bit more of an advanced plan for your animals, you can actually also have a specific trust that gets established for your pets as well. So for those of you who may not know us or haven't been to see us in a little bit, we do have a few new faces. So we have quite a team of attorneys at this point. We have recently welcomed Mark O'Brien and Elaine Alston to our team. One of the things with the Copenbarger firm, for those of you who don't know us, is we have quite a few departments as well. So we not only focus on estate planning and getting things established, we also focus on what happens beyond that. One of the big considerations is, what happens if you pass away? At that point, it's who's going to be in charge of making sure your wishes are actually carried out, whether that's about your animals, your money, how to protect your beneficiaries, whatever that looks like. We also have a business and tax department. So if you do have a business, you have tax questions, you have rental properties, and you're looking for more information on protections for that, we can also help you in-house there as well. Now, one of the things at Copenbarger we are always focused on is ensuring that you do not end up in court. We don't want anybody to unnecessarily have to go to court, whether that be you specifically or after you've passed away, your family or estate going through the court system. But unfortunately, there are inevitabilities that can happen. Sometimes families don't get along. Sometimes there's clarifications needed. And so if something does need to go into court, we have Elaine there in our estate litigation department as well. Now, as attorneys, we could not do what we do without our wonderful staff. So our staff is the reason that we have been able to help so many people for so long and in such a timely manner. A lot of times, thankfully, in this area, we don't have emergencies. However, there are times that things need to be responded to immediately. And so our staff is very much a part of being able to give that to our clients. We have offices all over the state of California, so if you are physically in one of our locations and want to meet with us in person, we have many options. If your family needs to meet with us, we have, again, numerous places for them, but we can also do things via phone or Zoom if that's either easier or more comfortable. So again, I am absolutely an avid pet lover. I very much take it seriously of what happens if I pass away, what is going to happen to my pets. One of the worst things that can happen, unfortunately, if you have no plan, is assumptions can be made. And that can unfortunately lead to animals either going into shelters or in some cases, even being put down. So having either a simple plan or a more complicated plan, something that's more complex, can prevent that outcome from occurring. For a lot of people, again, they make an assumption that, oh, my family member will take my pet. The problem with that is, again, you're making an assumption. What happens if your pet has a higher medical need by the time you've passed away? Can the person you're assuming that would take that pet actually afford their care? What if they now live somewhere that won't allow them to have a pet? What if they've had a child who has an allergy now to that pet? There's unfortunately a lot that can change where, again, if you just leave it in chance and you hope that the pet will be protected and taken care of, unfortunately, that outcome is not always what actually happens. So first and foremost, if you have a revocable trust, you can absolutely make a specific provision in your trust for your pet. So most of the pictures you're going to see are actually, I call it my farm, are the animals that I have at home that I'm concerned about taking care of. One is one of our dogs. So with dogs, a lot of times, again, it seems very simple. It's a dog. Most people understand how to take care of a dog. But What happens again if that dog is at an age where they have higher medical bills? So with golden retrievers in particular and a few of the other breeds, they can have hip dysplasia. Well, that can be an extremely expensive cost depending on how far you want to go with it. Again, what happens if somebody has an allergy? What happens if they're in an apartment? Some of these larger breeds don't do as well in apartment settings. And so within your trust, you can actually designate not only one person who would take care of your animal, but you can have a line of succession. You can also, through that, leave money for their care. So you can designate a percentage of your estate that would go to the person to take care of your animal. You can do a specific dollar figure, but you can leave them a resource to make sure that how you would want your animal taken care of, you're at least helping that be accomplished. And in many cases, you are accomplishing it with that money. And then you can also leave basic care for their instructions for their care. The reason this can be important is especially if you have an animal that may be a little bit more particular or has different triggers, things of that nature, it can be helpful to leave at least those basic instructions. So this is something that if you have an animal and have not already put a provision in your trust for them, I recommend you come and talk to us so that we can make sure that that gets taken care of. Now, what happens if you actually need a pet trust? Why would you need a pet trust versus just a provision in your estate plan itself? So, a pet trust does allow you to plan more in depth. It is something that allows you to go beyond a basic distribution provision and actually have a separate trust that is designed to protect that animal and provide instructions for whomever is going to ultimately have that responsibility. So one of the big things is clarity. Again, you want to make sure that, especially if you have an animal who's a little bit more, I'll say, high maintenance, which actually the cat you see on the screen is again one of mine. He is a more high maintenance animal. He unfortunately has a lot of medical issues and things that we need to be aware of that another person likely would not realize. And so within a trust, I'm able to provide very clear instructions for the care and maintenance of him if that ever came to pass. He is an animal that will need pretty much extreme financial support at some point or another. He will have medical needs that keep arising and I know will arise further. And I want to make sure that he does not end up in a shelter because for an animal like this, unfortunately, in most cases, he would end up being put down because most people aren't interested in adopting an animal that has that level of care and financial need that will be necessary. So having a trust for an animal like this can really truly make or break the difference of them having a good rest of their life after you are gone. The other thing is, what happens if you have an animal that needs, beyond the medical side of things, more detailed instructions? Again, this is where we look at more of the livestock animals, things like horses, cattle, chickens. I mean, those farm animals that are not just your pet. They often have more of a purpose and frankly, they have more care involved. So to be able to actually specify those detailed instructions can truly make or break the ability for somebody to take care of them. The other thing is, especially when you're looking at an animal like a horse, not everybody can have a horse. A, they don't fit in apartments typically. B, a lot of people, this is not an intuitive thing that you grew up with. Horses are absolutely wonderful. I love them, but that is not something I would just hand over to anybody. And so having a trust in place allows you, again, that flexibility of going beyond just a simple basic instruction that you can only do within the confines of a revocable trust. So if you have an animal that, again, has a care need that goes beyond the basics, a trust is then something to very much consider for them. Continuity of care. So this is a big one in the event of incapacity. So it's not just what happens to that animal when you've passed away. You're actually able to, in a trust, set up who would provide the care for those animals in the event you are incapacitated. Because what happens if you end up in skilled nursing and you are not going to be able to return home? The animal still needs to be fed, walked, cared for in whatever capacity they need. So who is going to actually do that? And again, if you have funded a pet trust ahead of time, one of the things is that then that money can be used to take care of them while you are still alive but incapacitated. So all of that is, again, ensuring and assuring you that their needs will be attended to according to your wishes. It's also important that, again, when you pass away, the animal has funds to be taken care of if something else is going on with the rest of your estate. So one of the issues we talk about in a lot of our other webinars and seminars is your revocable trust and funding that revocable trust. So very quickly, for those of you who haven't attended some of those webinars or haven't been privy to that information yet, one of the things when you have a trust is that there are assets that need to be titled in that trust name. If you do not title them in the trust name and you pass away and they are an unprotected asset, they can still be subject to probate. Now, at Copenbarger, we build in safety nets to make sure that it doesn't go through a full probate court experience. And if you're curious about that information, reach out to us or look at one of our Basics of Estate Planning webinars. But one of the issues is you still need, even with a trust and these safety nets, there is still a need for some court if you have an unprotected asset. And that can then delay distribution of funds, and as a result, funds that would care for your pet. By establishing a pet trust that is separate from that estate issue, you're able to have those dedicated funds used immediately that then avoid the delays associated with whatever else is going on with your estate. The other thing is, forgetting even the funding of your trust, what happens if you have beneficiaries that do end up fighting? They want to go to court for whatever the reason, they don't get along, they're looking to argue in some way, shape, or form, and that's causing, again, delays for the rest of your estate. The pet trust ensures, again, that you're able to have those funds separate so that your animal doesn't have to face those consequences. So I know that was quick. When it comes to pet trusts, it's frankly not that complicated. It's essentially just making sure that you have provided provisions for your pet ahead of time. The reason that this, again, was something that we were doing separately is this is a more specific area of planning. So if you do have additional questions on this, if you are interested in getting a pet trust started, absolutely give us a call when this is all over. But ultimately, whether we're setting up a plan for you, for your kids, for your animals, for whomever, we want to make sure that you are having the consideration of what matters most to you. How do you, in this context, want your pets protected? You want to make sure that you have someone in place and, again, aren't just making assumptions that could or could not end up being taking place. So come in and have your plan reviewed. If you don't have a plan already and this is something that matters to you, we can get you started and make sure that this is part of the planning that you establish. Now, if you have not worked with Copenbarger or you haven't worked with us for a while and you're wondering why should you still work with us, one of the big reasons is that we have more experience at this point, very frankly, than a lot of other estate planners do that are more small time or solo practitioners. The reason, again, becomes that we are just a larger firm. And so we're able to do continuing education. We're able to do these more specialized areas of planning, and we're able to help you on a more comprehensive basis. After this, you will receive an automated phone call asking if you are interested in setting up an appointment. Feel free to use that appointment, though, again, if you need to review your plan, get a plan started, or even talk about other issues that you don't know if they apply here or not. Feel free to take advantage of that time as well. Again, I know that this was a quicker morning session, but I hope that this was helpful. I will stick around for a bit after this to answer any questions that come in through the chat or the Q&A. But thank you for attending. We are here to help, and we look forward to working with you and making sure you and your animals are protected. Thank you.